Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all, and please forgive I have a little bit of the congestion that is going around right now, so forgive my scratchy, nasally voice tonight. I am here to talk to you tonight about how hope appears in unexpected places. The fella on my screen that's holding the "Do you see me" sign is one of our neighbors, and there's a couple others in the background. And we refer to the people that we work with at Micah as our neighbors. They are just like all of us, they just happen to be unhoused a lot of times when we meet them. Just as a quick overview, Micah Ministries is about 20 years old this year. We are we have evolved a lot in 2 decades, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that tonight. But our story is a really powerful example of how the church has the ability to see needs and where God's heart is breaking in the communities where our buildings exist, and really lean deeply into that. Micah's story started with 9 downtown churches in Fredericksburg, Virginia, that really decided that they could do more together than they could ever do apart. And some of the things I'm going to share with you tonight give some examples of kind of where that has taken us over the years. And so I'm going to hope this works, but I'm going to start with a video that I think tells the story kind of past and present and future of Micah and where leaning into the hope that we see in our neighbors' lives has taken us. So.
On any given night in the Fredericksburg region, there are about 200 people who live either in a shelter or somewhere outside. More than a third of them live in tents, abandoned buildings, or other places not meant for human habitation, some of them chronically for a year or more. Many of them have one or more disabilities that they struggle with.
I'm Peg. Life has taken me down many different roads. I was homeless for 5 years. It was through the Micah community that helped me get back on my feet. I have spent the past decade making it my life's work, helping others through the struggles that they are encountering.
While Micah began as a basic needs organization, it has evolved over the years to care for the whole person, also addressing housing, income, healthcare, and social and spiritual support.
Today, I have several people I need to check in on. I've got one that needs some housekeeping issues taken care of, get him some food. He's not eating very much, dwindling away. I find that when he eats more, he doesn't drink as much and he does overall better. And then we're going to go check on another client that he was supposed to get his internet squared away, and for some reason it didn't come. So I'm going to check to see if he got that. And if we have time, we'll check on a little lady who is having difficulty walking, that she's a severe alcoholic.
Through our experiences, God has now laid it on the hearts of the downtown churches to consider what it would be to take the asset of community that already exists on the street, move it indoors, give people a key and their own space, and pair it with our resources in order to help create a safe, healthy community for people to get what they need out of the place that they live.
People do not become homeless when they run out of money. They run out of relationships. So there could be many reasons as to why they run out of relationships. It could be substance abuse. It could be mental health, both diagnosed and undiagnosed. A good percentage of the time, it is trauma. When you take the alcohol or other substances from other people, they're no different than you or I. You know, you still have the same fears. In order to end homelessness, housing is not enough. Housing without community is never enough.
The Jeremiah community proposed by the downtown churches is imagined as a place where people can belong, be loved, and find home again. It comes not just from a need to house people and get them off the street, it claims them as neighbors, a people worthy of hope, healing, and a future, and a community who already know a thing or two about caring for one another.
She goes. I call them my people. They are my family in a sense. But when I am home visiting with them, they are not my client. They are my friend. I think I'll have a house next to yours. Ooh. I think the purpose for Jeremiah community will be a place where everyone can bring their own talents, share their stories, be heard, and to belong. He's walking away.
The idea is to build a neighborhood of 30 to 50 small homes. They will be about 400 square feet with a bedroom, a bathroom, an efficiency kitchen, and a front porch. Everyone who lives there will pay rent, have access to support services, and opportunities to share their God-given gifts in the life of the community through amenities such as a community center, a garden, and an art workshop.
And I have a yard, I could plant me a garden with tomatoes and carrots and stuff like that.
It'd be nice to have a bus stop if I can't really walk to, when I want to go out.
I was offered, like Jake, since you love plants so much, maybe you could be second in command of doing all the plants. And if I get more of what I need, then I can make more. And make everybody's yard look beautiful.
They can belong in a community with like-minded people that have similar experiences and give them the sense of community they've been lacking for a very long time.
And that's the community center, and that's the garden.
I'm just in awe just looking at it.
With Jeremiah community, that's the greatness of it, is that they can have that sense of community, and at the same time, when they want to be by themselves, they can go to their own abode.
I think I even saw like something in the paper where they were showing pictures of what the community would look like, how everybody could have their own little, small little place to stay. Something that could be their own.
And how long will it take us to move in?
As soon as I can get it built. Micah is already a neighborhood of support. We are ready to bring it all together and create a community of small homes where people can live affordably, have purpose, and grow meaningful relationships. Where home begins now, and Fredericksburg bears witness to the meaning of thy kingdom come, on earth as it is in heaven. On any
So I often like to say that it is the stories of our neighbors that we have had the privilege of being a part that have helped us to know where we need to join God in what God is already doing in our community. And on your screen, you can see a couple of the different ministries, and we only have a little bit of time together, so I won't go into all of them, but you can see a couple of the different things that as we have listened and learned from the people we have met on the streets of Fredericksburg, we have created a number of different ways that we can be part of their lives and help restore their lives to lift up and highlight some of the gifts and talents that God gave them too. And that journey has helped us to meet often a very vulnerable group of people and work towards not just ministries, but what we are now working on is a vision we call Jeremiah Community that will be a supportive neighborhood where a lot of that can all be experienced in one place. We have a neighborhood of support in a lot of the ministries we have, but we're actually soon, we just got our rezoning approval. And we are moving fast and forward, fast and furiously forward to build this community. We're actually going to have a geography and a place where a lot of these lives can be lifted up in a whole new way. And so I want to just go through a couple of the parts, the pieces of this that I think are important. And I think there's a biblical story that roots us in in some of the ways we have responded to some of these needs. Matthew 25, of course, is a common scripture that we all know that talks about how, we look for God in all the places that people are hungry, people are strangers, people are sick. And we meet God in those places. And so things like a hospitality center, community meals that happen 365 days of the year in our different churches. Um, those are all ways that we oftentimes refer to as conduits to relationships. Meeting people when they're hungry, when they're sick, when they are excluded from the norms of society is a way of meeting God in those places. And those are what I oftentimes refer to as incubators, where we can listen and learn for other ways that God may be calling us to show up and respond differently to needs in our community. Another place that we have found God has called us is into the healthcare sphere. Jesus called his 12 disciples and gave them the authority to drive out spirits and to heal people in really profound ways. And I think God still calls us today to meet people in that level of suffering. And even when they've been written off by most healthcare systems and other ways that societal systems don't work, the church and God calls us to step into those places. What you see in some of the pictures here is in the middle is our respite care house, which is a program we developed in partnership with our local hospital system that gives people a place to stay when they get out of the hospital and they're sick, or in some cases they're dying and they need a place to stay while they're getting better or needing to die with dignity. On the right-hand side, you see a doctor that is going into the home of one of our neighbors who is housed but has a hard time going to an actual doctor's office. And so partnerships we have created and needs we have seen in the spaces and the relationships we've shared with people have helped us to build some of those partnerships. Um, Housing has been a really key part. It's really hard to really help people to live into all that God has called them to be until they have a stable place to live. Um, we oftentimes talk about Micah 6:8, which is the passage that Micah Ministries is named after, doing justice, loving kindness, and walking humbly with God as things that the Lord requires of us. But I actually have a particular affinity for Micah 4:4, which says everyone will have their own vine, their own fig tree, and no one will be afraid because God has spoken into that space. And that passage is often one that is referenced as maybe one of the first biblical statements on homelessness that God never meant for any of us to be displaced. Um, and uh, and so we work very hard to move people. Currently, it's in a scattered site model where we rent and master lease and own some units in the community. We're working on building a neighborhood. And down in your left-hand side is one of our newest ways of helping lift people up off the street. It's a ministry that we call Hesed House, that we bought and renovated an old 14-room hotel. It's like a 1950s style hotel where people that we're moving off the street can go first while we are working with them on trying to do the things we need to do to move them into housing. And it's become a very trauma-informed way of helping people to resettle and have a place before they move into what can sometimes be a very scary experience of having lived for many years on the street and then moving back into housing. Um, another way that we lean into what God is doing through our neighbors' lives is through the dignity of purpose and income. Ecclesiastes 3:22 says there's nothing better than that all should enjoy their work, for that's their lot. And I'm reminded, that God didn't just create us people for God's pleasure. God created us with a purpose, and that oftentimes we forget that when it applies to neighbors with disabilities, neighbors who are of different socioeconomic status, neighbors who live on the street. And so what we try to do is spend time with people understanding what they like to do, what time of day is good for them to share their purpose with the world, and identify their gifts and move those gifts into an economy where even if they get a disability check, they can still have a reason to get up every day and maybe earn a little bit of income to help them um, to um, to share what gifts they do have with the world. And I think one of the most profound things about, when you join God and what God is doing in your communities, you cannot help but understand that, when Jesus came and joined us in our world, that is fundamentally what God calls us to do. Um, when the word became flesh and moved into the neighborhood, being in ministry with unhoused neighbors means doing life with them. And some of the pictures you see across the top of your screen are an example of a ministry that we have evolved called Micah Street Church that has been an evolution of all of the things that we've learned. And our neighbors plant gardens together, and we do funerals together, and we do all the things that you all do on Sunday and throughout the week in your churches. But we have a community in which um, we um, we have people of shared experience that do life together in a really profound way. Um, and you heard me say or you heard Peg say in the video that people don't become homeless when they run out of money. People become homeless when they run out of relationships. And I think this is a really profound call for the church because, frankly, families are often what are broken apart for all kinds of different reasons, when people become homeless. And the public systems don't know what to do with broken relationships. They know how to fill out a food stamp application and maybe help you find an apartment and do some case management, but they don't know what it really means to restore creation. And this is the really profound call that I think that the church has when it comes to unhoused communities. And so, as I mentioned, Jeremiah community is our expression of what that will mean. We believe that the development of Jeremiah community will be an opportunity for our community to see what the kingdom of God can look like, right in our very midst. Um, and so, final thoughts that I will leave with you as just a kind of a theological reflection on what I think has inspired us is a recognition that in the beginning, God created all of us, every last one of us, with a home and a job. Genesis 2:15 says God put man in a garden and gave us a place and a purpose, and that was to cultivate and care for creation. And our eviction from that original place has sent us throughout all time trying to get back and finding home and losing it again. And that continues today in our very own personal and collective lives. Um, and much like the beginning, God's vision doesn't change. We can't go back, but we can go forward. And the call in Revelations is that at the end of the story, God comes to dwell with us. God is here, and all we need to do is to find God in those places, because everybody goes home. And all the prophets throughout time have continued to call us to this place where we take up the torch, we take up the cross to build the kingdom right where we are on earth as it is in heaven. And that's what I have for you. I don't know if we have time for questions or discussion, but um,
We do. Oh, I'm just going to start right out. I love Micah Ministries, and I'm so tickled. I get your newsletters. I saw you all trying to get that council approval, town city council approval. You had to go back a few times, and I was kind of worried. And then I got the one that it finally happened, and Jeremiah community is going to happen. And oh my goodness, Megan, I'm just so proud of your all's work. It's hard to believe you've been at this for 20 years. I think probably it came to my attention a few years ago with a great Synod Assembly video from y'all, probably the one you showed us earlier. So I've just been rooting for you all the way, and I'm proud to say that I try to send you a few dollars every once in a while.
thank
But
you very much.
congratulations. And I'm in Pulaski, Virginia, as are a few other people on this call. And we just got done trying to do some emergency sheltering in the super cold January. And it left me with millions of questions. So I'm not going to use up our time tonight to pick your all's brains, but I would love to get your slides so that we have some
Sure.
material to work with here at home when we start working on some of this
Yeah.
meeting needs and then looking at the whole human and all that. So anyway, congratulations. Thank you. And
Megan, thank you. That was beautiful. I agree with Pastor Terry. It was, I'm in the Pulaski community area as well. And so that is very good. And it really does give us ideas, I think, moving forward. Right, Terry? So maybe Jessica too. So thank you for a very good presentation.
Thank you. So I'm proud to say I went to school with quite a few people from Pulaski. I went to Emory and Henry College.
Josh Kilborn says hi.
I love Josh Gilborn. Maybe it was him
He loves you too.
maybe it was him that just reached out to me with what you all were doing. So, but if I'm happy to help if you are having some of these conversations in your community. I feel like there are people who have helped me and guided me along the way, and I feel like it's my obligation to share that. So as you get stuck and you're thinking through things, please call on me, and it's really my privilege to have the opportunity to help other communities.
Well, I think one of the things that happens is that there is hope for other communities because you've found a way to do this and bring hope to your community. And so that hope will spread to different communities.
Well, and the big scary secret is that we're still figuring it out. I mean, there's still things that we're retooling and rethinking, and as our community changes, I mean, that's the beautiful thing of ministry, right? We're never done. We just keep looking for who we need to be in the time and the space that God has planted us.
Joanne, go ahead.
Megan, I know when Women of the ELCA had you as our service project a few years back, you had an Amazon wish list. Do you
Yeah.
all still have that? Because that might be something that if people
We
know about
do.
you.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do, and that is really a wonderful way to support some of the consumable things that we need to continue to care for our folks. Um, so we love when we get a bunch of Amazon boxes outside the door.
And I know we did quilts for you all, and I've had this idea that I would just love to see us for every one of those homes that are built in Jeremiah community to have one of our women's Lutheran World
Yeah.
Relief quilts. And everybody that's on here, if your church has a quilt group, we've been trying to locate all those quilt groups in the Virginia Synod because I think it would just be so wonderful for each one of those homes to have one of our quilts.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. We often use the ones you gave us at Hesed House. When people move into the hotel, we have groups that come and turn the room over, and we often are using those quilts in a similar way.
I have a question. Anybody else? Do you have, I would think that you would have more people than you have capacity for in these various,
Mhm.
like the respite, the hospitality center, maybe. I don't know about that, but Hesed, can you help us with like, what do you do when you have needs beyond what you can do?
Yeah, so it depends on what it is. I mean, our cold weather shelter, we don't turn anybody away. We just make space. And this has probably been the first year, and I've been with Mike. I know I don't even look 20 years old, but I've been with Micah since for it'll be 18 years this year. And so the this has been probably the first year that I've really felt like, the numbers are just a lot. And it's changing, and not just in numbers, but in the complexity of need. The mental health, the physical disabilities that we're seeing is just really unbelievable. And so I think that's probably where we are most challenged right now, is trying to think through like how we make space and how we give intentional attention to some of the ones that are not going to self-resolve in the midst of lots of needs. And so I mean, I think what we have done is we just keep evolving, and we keep growing, and we keep adding. I mean, we're having some conversation right now about whether we need to buy another hotel or things like that. And so you just keep doing, and but generally speaking, we just don't turn anybody away. We just keep trying to find new ways to respond.
Do you have folks that come through your program become leaders themselves or peer support people or things like that?
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks different. I mean, part of the reason I showed you all that video is Peg was when I first started, was one of the very most chronically homeless people I knew. She was on the street for 5 years. And she has her own story of how that happened. And she's actually in charge of she's my program director now. And when she first got off the street, she started in the mailroom, and you don't always have a lot of those stories, but she, and there's another woman that actually works for us, and there's others that drive our bus and, work at our cold weather shelter. And, when we have folks that get to that new level of stability, people that have come from lived experience will always have more to share and more understanding and compassion than people who haven't.
Megan, can you tell us more about the homeless count? Because I didn't know about that when we were working with you all. That was new to me, about the certain time of the month, that the year, was it in January maybe, that you did it?
Yeah. Every year, every community around the country does what is called a point in time count. It's like an annual census where service providers and churches and volunteers, they go out to shelters and other places in the community, anywhere that there may be people that are unhoused. And it's just a 1 day count that kind of gives and there's no way to ever possibly capture everybody, but it does give a baseline. For instance, in Fredericksburg on a given night, they can count 215 people on the street or in a shelter. In LA, they can count 60,000. And so that just gives you an idea of like the volume of need is certainly different in Fredericksburg than it is in LA. And I'm sure they're missing people in LA. So it's a good baseline where At least for now, that's what like the federal government and state governments and whatnot determine how they allocate resources, and it gives communities a baseline.
Meghann, if there was one thing that you really needed, what would it be? I mean, is it like socks? I know socks are all we did one year. We just collected all these socks. I think it was like
Yeah.
2022 or something.
Honestly, so if you're talking like items, underwear, and you know, it's really hard for us to, a lot of people donate socks. We've gotten that message across. And socks are important, but underwear is one we have a hard time hanging on to, and we're trying to devise some better solutions for how we do laundry, for instance. I mean, one of the survival habits of people on the street is you get clothes and you wear them and then you throw them away and you get more because you don't want to carry a lot of clothes with you and you don't really have means to wash clothes. And so that's one of the ways that we see God's heart breaking. And as simple as it sounds, that's something where we've been trying to figure out how can we create some solutions around that. But underwear tends to be one of those consumable things that we have a hard time hanging on to. Big picture, I'm raising $17.5 million to build a village.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
So if you know of some people that would like to talk to me, we're doing a really cool thing in Fredericksburg.
Are you getting support from the localities like county or town financial
Yeah,
support?
I mean, it's always political and that's fun, but yes, we do anticipate that we will get some local support and but we really want this to be as we want to minimize government funding for perhaps some obvious reasons. And also just because I really think that our community has the capacity to really do something from the grassroots, and the strength of this will be in how we're able to pull together the people of our community to own and claim and be this community.
And has the cold walk happened? Has that already taken place?
No, that is if you all are looking for diff cool ways to like raise money in your community around hunger, homelessness, and hope. I think those are the taglines. The coldest night of the year walk is something that has it started in Canada and then it drifted to the United States about 3 or 4 years ago. This will be our third year, and we hold the title as the most money raised in the country for the last couple of years. We have a goal of $200,000 this year, but that's coming up on February 22nd.
And just so you know, there are, I don't know, possibly a couple of Lutheran teams that have already signed up that may be a part of it that would be glad to take your money so that we can give it to Micah.
That's right. Thank you all. If I can be of help to you, please let me know.